CNN host Michael Smerconish concern-trolled about the Democrats moving too far left. Check this out.
I'm Michael Smerconish in Philadelphia. Are Democrats snatching defeat from the jaws of victory by moving too far to the left? That's today's survey question at Smerconish.com in an effort to appease the most vocal activists within the party. Are its presidential candidates moving too far to the left to win in the general election against President Trump? You know, it's an old adage. To get nominated, you move to the edge. To win, you move to the center. But early in this cycle, there are signs that Democrats might be moving too far. Consider that on Thursday night, Joe Biden changed a position that he's held for 4 decades. Biden said that he would no longer support the Hyde Amendment, which bans the use of federal funds for abortion. Now, his logic makes sense. He said that where he views health care as a right, he could no longer support an amendment that makes that right dependent on someone's zip code. His change came after his prior view was hammered by his opponents who painted his prior position in extreme terms. Cory Booker said that he regarded the Hyde Amendment as an assault on African-American women, and maybe that gave Biden a push. Maybe he thought he could not risk alienating voters of color with the trifecta of Anita Hill, the '94 crime bill, and the Hyde Amendment. While the new Biden position will play well in primary season, the most recent polling we have on this from 2016 shows that most Americans, 58%, they liked his prior view. And abortion is not the only example of where the party risks running too far to the left. Impeachment, it's the buzzword of the day for many Democratic activists, and House Judiciary Chair Jerry Nadler has been pushing Speaker Nancy Pelosi to facilitate the launch of proceedings. But as Axios pointed out yesterday, 75% of the Democratic House caucus has yet to publicly support impeachment, and where it takes 21 of 24 House Judiciary Dems to refer impeachment to the floor, only 13 are so far publicly on board. Still, 11 Democratic presidential candidates have called for the impeachment of President Trump, including Elizabeth Warren, Kamala Harris, and Beto O'Rourke. But the polling suggests this is not where a majority of Americans stand. A recent CNN poll found that 41% of Americans believe President Trump should be impeached or removed from office, but 54% say he should not. 5% had no opinion. Last weekend, at a gathering of California Democrats, former Colorado Governor John Hickenlooper was booed after warning attendees that the party should not embrace socialism.
We want to beat Donald Trump and achieve big progressive goals. Socialism is not the answer. I was reelected.
Here again, socialism might no longer be taboo at the DNC, but among all Americans, a majority remain opposed. A Gallup poll from April showed that while 4 in 10 Americans embrace some form of socialism, and that's a marked increase over the last century, still 51% believe socialism would be a bad thing for the country. And then there's health care. You can add Medicare for all to the list of issues that are gaining currency among Democratic candidates: impeachment, repealing the Hyde Amendment, socialism, and the Green New Deal. But are Americans ready to replace all of private insurance? When former Congressman John Delaney tried to distinguish Medicare for all from universal coverage when speaking to California Democrats, he too was booed.
Medicare for all may sound good, but it's actually not good policy, nor is it good politics. I'm telling you.
Hearing that, rising Democratic star Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez told Delaney via Twitter that it was time for him to, quote, sashay away.
Okay, let's break this down. So his analysis here is just very poor, because what he did is he cherry-picked the handful of issues where he can try to make his case, and he ignored over 90% of the issues. So let's go through this. When you talk about, okay, abortion and the Hyde Amendment, does he have a point on that specific issue? Actually, yes, he does. He does. He just literally just showed you the poll. He has an issue on that specific point. On the issue of impeachment, does he have a point? Yeah, he does. On that specific point, he has a point. Now, what he doesn't tell you is this. He mentions Medicare for all at the end there. Medicare for all, notice he didn't show you a poll for that. Why? Because Medicare for all polls at 70%. Maybe there's a reason why he's not showing you a poll about that one. other issues where Americans are with the so-called far left. Increasing the minimum wage, 80% of the American people want to increase the minimum wage. Free college, 58% of the American people want free college. Marijuana legalization, 60% of the American people want that. Ending the wars, only 17% of Americans still support the war in Afghanistan. Raising taxes on the rich, 58% of the American people want to raise taxes on the rich. And the list goes on and on. So, in other words, what he did is he cherry-picked like the handful of issues where what's perceived as the furthest left position is not with the majority of Americans. And he's using that to concern troll and make a much broader, bolder claim. And the bolder claim is, are Democrats moving too far left? The answer is no. Very clearly, no. If anything, they have to move further left. But having said that, on those specific issues he brought up at the beginning, abortion, in terms of the Hyde Amendment and impeachment, he does have an argument on those very narrow issues. Now, to the socialism point, listen, the reality is, when you go issue for issue, the American people do not know how left they are. And this is a point I've made many times before. If you poll the American people and you just ask them broadly about the labels, hey, where do you fall on the political spectrum? Their response is moderately conservative. So center-right. That's how your average American describes their politics, okay? But when you go, okay, put aside the labels, because we're assuming you know what the labels are when we ask you about the labels, and that's a mistake. Just go by the issues. They're not even center-left, they're just left. The American people are just left. And again, you go through, you name the issue, I'll tell you the number. Like 65% of Americans think immigration is a good thing for the country. And that's, remember, Trump got elected, and so it became establishment bubble conventional wisdom of like, well, obviously you got to be anti-immigration to win. No, actually, the American people overwhelmingly think immigration is a net positive thing. So that's not true. But that's just one, again, that's one example. I can go on and on and on here as to, like, even on the issue of abortion, the most popular position is to have abortion legal in a variety of circumstances. So in other words, people see the utility of like, okay, would I ban late-term abortions if it's not in a rare instance of like life of the mother or incest or rape? Yes. So people have that position, but they also think, well, yeah, but most of the time it should just be the woman's choice. That's what the polls show. So in other words, having abortion legal in all cases doesn't poll that high. But what polls the worst? Banning all abortions. That polls the worst. The position that the American people have is the position of Roe versus Wade, which is, yeah, abortion is legal, but after viability, then the states can regulate it as they see fit. That's what Roe versus Wade is. That's what the American people believe. So even he's being a little misleading even on the issue of abortion because he's just talking about the Hyde Amendment here. And the Hyde Amendment is, should federal funds go towards abortion? And apparently the American people, 58% of them say no on that front. But again, what he's doing is he's cherry-picking data to make a broader claim and a broader argument that actually doesn't fit the data. Because if I give you a list of 15 policy positions, and there are 3 policy positions in there where the American people are not with the left, that doesn't mean that they're going too far left. You could say on those narrow issues, perhaps they're going too far left, but on the majority of the issues, they're not going too far left. In fact, if anything, they should go further left. So, and by the way, I've also said to the socialism point, this is actually why I said from early on that Bernie Sanders made a mistake when he described himself as a democratic socialist. Because there is still a taboo around that word. Now, not among young Americans anymore. Young Americans, they're like, I like that even better than I like capitalism. But for older generations, there's still a taboo. Now, you could argue, well, that taboo needs to be changed, and we need to fight back against that, so on and so forth. But the reality is, there was a way to have your cake and eat it too, where you still accurately describe what you are while not having the negative taboo associated with it, which is social democracy, where you get the best of both worlds, where you get the Scandinavian-style system. And so I would have advised Bernie early on, describe yourself as a social democrat. But listen, to be clear, I don't think Bernie knew the difference between democratic socialism and social democracy. So he just said, I'm a democratic socialist, and then opened up that door, and now everybody says that. And I do think that kind of handed a little victory to the right in that sense, because they could beat up on you all day and strawman you because you walked into the field of saying, I believe in a post-capitalist philosophy. When he doesn't. He really is a social democrat who inaccurately describes himself as a democratic socialist. But I digress from that point. Bottom line is, Smirkanish is concern trolling here and making a very bad point. And the point is, oh my God, Democrats have moved too far to the left, when in reality, on the overwhelming majority of the issues, they need to move further left. Further left. There are a handful of issues where you could say, whoa, 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 pump your brakes. Even if you believe in that, you don't run on it. Like for example, with Bernie, when he said felons should vote. You could say, you know what, Bernie, you're right on principle. I agree with you on that. The right to vote is a right, full stop. Fine and dandy. But if you run a campaign on that, you're a dumbass. Because the polls show overwhelmingly that the American people don't agree with Bernie. So there are a few little areas where Smirkanish actually has an argument, but he's making too strong a claim, too bold a claim, too big a claim that doesn't fit the overall argument, doesn't fit the reality of the situation, and it's incredibly, incredibly misleading. But just so we're clear, this is going to be used now by the establishment Democrats, the centrist Democrats. They're going to think, oh, Smirkanish is right, and their thought is going to be, well, so we need to run to the center on all the issues. And good luck on that one, because you're going to get slapped in the face by reality, not just in the primary, but also in the general. Because it turns out the key to winning a general election is to excite your base. That's what Trump showed, if nothing else. Excite your base. Always hold your base. You cannot slap them in the face. And also, it's the populism, stupid. So the Democrats have a built-in advantage because they can hammer away on the issues that their base loves. Medicare for all, free college, living wage, ending the war, so on and so forth. And that also gets independents and even some Republicans. So it's a built-in advantage because it's the populism, and if you're real populist, you can win. So Smirkanish, as usual, has no idea what he's talking about. But I doubt he will ever issue a correction, even though what he said is not true.